Welcome back to another episode of the Westward Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Conley, and I'm very excited for my guest today. This is Dr. Cliff Robertson Jr. from Warrior Counseling Works. And Dr. Robertson is just an incredible person. He has done so much good for the world. He's a veteran of Desert Storm. He's faced a lot of obstacles in his life from youth to adulthood, but he took all those experiences and really made it like his life's work and mission to help veterans and at risk youth through the power of equine therapy. And I'm really excited to hear his story and to bring it to you as well. So let's head westward. Dr. Robertson, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, it's an honor to be here, Devin. I've looked forward to this opportunity, for a while now, and let's just dive in. Where would you like to start?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, let's dive in. And I want to say that your work resonates with me personally so much. I have a brother who is an Afghanistan vet. I have my, counseling license, worked in the schools as an educator, as a counselor. I just think this work that you're doing is invaluable. And we're going to get to it because there's a lot that you have done, but can we just start at the beginning? I know your childhood, you definitely had some struggles, right? And in terms of maybe like some household struggles coming from kind of a broken home. Can you just start with that way back at the beginning? What obstacles did you encounter as a youth?
Well, growing up I grew up in an alcoholic home. My mother was a big time alcoholic, and it really, obviously affects everything in your life from, home stability to everything else. And, it's, living with an addict is, as a kid, you don't really understand it. As an adult and now a counselor, you understand that, they're living in a different world than you are. You're just trying to be you're just trying to exist. But as a child, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
You try to do things to fix it, and usually you get punished for that, and you don't understand that either. And so yeah, but one of the great things about my childhood, though, I mean that those were real challenges. Was I got to grow up around horses.
Yeah.
My grandfather was um, one of the first people involved in the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo back when it was the Fat Stock Show and Rodeo,
No kidding.
and he raised and trained cutting horses before it was, the big thing to do when you actually did it to cut cattle for the herd, and obviously they still do that today, but it wasn't as competitive, it wasn't as big a deal, but he had, so I grew up, in and around horses, and it's been so that's been a joy to reflect back on. But there were some real challenges back then that really kind of tear your world apart.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, that's to experience that as a child where you don't understand why you're in trouble. And when you try to fix it, you get in more trouble and you don't understand then. And it's just kids suffer so greatly when they can't really put together how to get themselves out of the situation that they're
Right.
in, and they might not have resources, and you're just kind of stuck in this home. You're not an adult yet, you can't move out on your own. Did you feel kind of trapped?
Yeah, we did. I mean, there was, and trapped and afraid. I mean, there was one point, and this is one of those stories that a lot of people can't believe actually happened. But we were coming home from one of my grandfather's houses, and my mom was drunk. I mean, very drunk, and we were driving. She was driving, and my sister and I were fourth, fifth, sixth grade, something like that, and we were begging her to pull over and let us drive,
Oh, wow.
and we finally did. And I don't remember how it all happened, but my sister, who's a year and a half older than me, um, I just remember us finally pulling over, and the car light, the interior car lights coming on, and my mom getting out. I scooted over, and because I could see over the dash to steer, but my feet weren't, my legs weren't long enough to push the pedals. So my
Right.
sister pushed the pedals, and that's how we got home. But I've got all that blacked out in my memory. I don't remember any of it. She remembers it all, but I just know we made it home. And then, of course, when we get home, we have to then turn around and lie to our dad, which we were told to do,
Okay.
uh, which makes it really difficult. Um, we have since talked to my dad about that. He's in his 80s now, and he's not doing so well. But hearing those stories 20, 30 years, 40 years later, still broke his heart.
Oh, sure.
He didn't know, couldn't, and we were just doing what we were told to do. And there were other times when, she would be doing things to meet her addiction, and the addiction led to other bad choices and dropping off things at other people's houses that we didn't know. And what we found out later, it involved infidelity, and it was crazy. I mean, it really was. And we were just kids trying to survive it. And I still remember the day that my dad said, we were on our way to a football banquet, and my dad said, me and your mom are probably going to get a divorce. Do you know who you'd go to? Who you'd want to live with? Because we were old enough at that point to have the choice.
Sure.
And I remember telling him, I don't know the answer to this. I felt like I did, but it was just in that moment, it was such a shock to hear. You kind of knew it was coming, but you just, that's not a question that you're ready to answer in that moment. It just kind of comes out of the blue. But we were blessed. My sister and I both chose to stay with my dad, and my grandmother stayed with us. And I can't imagine what life would have been like that away, because my mom was an alcoholic to the day she died several years ago, and would look you in the eye and tell you that she hadn't, and look you in the eye with her glassy eyes and the smell of alcohol in her breath.
Man, talk about being trapped between a rock and a hard place as a child, where you want to help your mom. You want to step in and save her from herself. But how do you do that? And then you're having to lie to your father and balance these things. And you're just a kid. Like, you just want to hang out and play football and go to the go see the horses and live your life.
Well, I mean, we would search the house and find her alcohol that she had hidden, and go pour it out. And then, of course, she would find out that that's what we did. That's what we had done, and we'd be punished for it. And it was sometimes pretty physical.
Yep.
And it didn't stop us. We were still, determined to see what we could do, even in the midst of that. But it was rough. I mean, it really was. A lot of times as adults, we don't understand the full impact that our choices are having on the ones that. On the ones we say we love, and the ones that we say love us.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen instances where the kid is trying to parent the parent, and that's not the role, and that's not your place, and you shouldn't have to do that. And
no.
Just
Well, and what I've learned is that when trauma like that enters into a child's life, they stop developing in that moment.
Okay, sure.
I mean, development stops, because you switch from that childhood development side to you make this gigantic leap to to being an adult, even though you're not ready for it, and you don't have the skills, you don't have the maturity. That's what you do, and it's a disaster. It never works.
Yep.
Some kids get through it, but I think that's because they have a lot of help.
Oh, absolutely. Otherwise, you can just become frozen in time, right?
Right.
You're just stuck there.
Right, and I see that in a lot of the foster kids that we work with, and we'll talk about that later. But I see it.
Yeah.
It's so real. It's absolutely so real.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Thank you so much for being open about this and sharing your story. I just know this is going to reach people, and there's probably a lot of somebody's out there that this is going to resonate with. And so your granddad had the horses, and
Mm-hmm.
you said that you got to be around them. Were they like your escape? Could you just go be with the horses and forget everything else?
Yeah. I mean, and it didn't matter whether we were, mucking stalls, or, we would drag the arena. We didn't have a tractor that did it. We did it. And so we'd drag the arena. We'd, feed the horses, saddle up and ride. Sometimes we would just do circles in the arena, right out in the pasture. He wouldn't let us ride his prize cutting horse. His cutting horse was named Tiger.
Okay.
But an amazing horse, just an absolutely amazing horse. He could whistle, and that big, that 2-finger cowboy whistle, and
Yep.
And the horse would be all the way across the other end of the pasture, and he'd come running.
That's so cool.
and he'd cut so hard sometimes that I think the cowboy that would be riding him could probably slap the dirt.
Yep. Like just Flintstoning it, dragging a leg.
Yeah, but solid black, white diamond on his shoulder, 4 white boots on the horse. It was just a beautiful, beautiful animal, incredible athlete. And, his his guy that rode for him a lot was his nickname was Cowboy.
Okay.
And,
Pretty
but
fitting.
yeah, pretty fitting. Well, and I look back and my grandfather was the quintessential cowboy. He wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat every day of his life, not to make a statement, but that's just who he was.
Yep.
That's just who he was. When he finally retired from, he also ran the Carnation Dairy there in Freeport, Texas. When he finally retired, he went to work another place, and then they said, "Well, you're too old," which they can't say anymore. Um, he bought a truck and put a big welding rig on the back of it and went to work for him as a contractor.
Oh my goodness. And that is no easy work.
No, it's not. And but he worked every day of his life. Didn't know an easy day, and still have lots of good memories. It was funny as a kid after my parents' divorce. I was big heavy into football and horses, and probably about a year before he died, I was um, I don't know, probably a junior in high school. I'd gotten really strong, and but he still had me convinced to that day because he said, "Hey, you ready to wrestle yet? Because I'm ready to take you any day." And I was quite convinced that at any moment he wanted to, he could take me.
Yep.
Even though I was, like I said, I'd gotten pretty strong, but I still, nah, he could take me.
You weren't going to tempt fate.
No, I was not. I was not.
Oh, it sounds like an incredible man. Really, really
Really, he
sounds
was.
like quite the role
Really, he
model.
was.
And
He
so are
really
you
was.
from kind of the Houston area? Is that where you grew up?
Yeah, I grew up a little south of Houston, near Lake Jackson, Texas, on the coast. Uh, that's where I grew up. I grew up going to the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. I had a gold badge and all that. That means you're a volunteer. And but I got to tell you, kind of telling myself a little bit that I saw I saw Elvis Presley at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo
No
the
kidding.
last time he was there.
Wow. That's pretty cool. And he was performing?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, he was performing, and
How was that?
oh, it's one of those memories you just never forget because we ran up to the rail when he was driving around the outside part of the rail, and yeah, he threw his scarf to the crowd. I don't too far away to even get. I know they're probably fighting over it,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, it's one of those memories you just never forget, and we were able to do that because of him.
That is really cool. And so you're like living a dual life almost, right? It sounds
Hmm.
like having all these great memories as a kid with your grandpa and your dad, and then fighting this battle on the side.
Yeah, it really was, and we looked for every opportunity we could to escape it. And that was, we escaped it into horses, we escaped it into hunting, we escaped it into sports. Um, you know, and I'm grateful that our escapes were positive things.
Hmm.
And they were, um, at a return they were positive. So it was a real blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you get older, you join the military. So can you talk a little bit about that? Was that part of the escape? What drew you to the military? Can you talk a little bit about your time in the service?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just about every male in my family served in the military at some point. As far back as we could trace. My dad was big into genealogy and just traced it back through the Civil War, through. I don't know if he's got it to the American Revolution yet, but I'm sure if he has the mental capacity, he's still working on it. But there's been it's been a trail. So I felt the calling. So I decided to my grandfather, my dad's dad was in the Navy, so I decided to go that route, and I was an air traffic controller in the Navy,
Okay.
and did we lose each other for a minute?
I think for just a second. but I think we're back. So I lost you when you said air traffic controller in the Navy. So I'll just mark this and we'll edit it out.
Okay. Yeah, I was an air traffic controller in the Navy. I got to see the world on the deck of an aircraft carrier. I was on the USS George Washington, part of the commissioning crew for that. We did 2 tours in the Persian Gulf during Desert Storm. I'm technically classified as a combat veteran, even though nobody actually shot at me. So I kind of step away from that, from that title, but I was in a war zone for
Yeah.
extended periods. So we'll go that way. I had some unique experiences. I got to go to Jerusalem.
Oh,
Um, we went to Haifa, Israel, and a couple of other places. Really, some neat experiences. I enjoyed my time. My last duty station was in Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico.
okay.
Tough duty, beautiful place.
Right.
Um, and I served right at 6 years. It was a great experience. Tough on a married man to have a wife and 2 kids when you're having to leave a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
And so I just decided it was best that I moved beyond that, because I was going to be rotating back to sea duty. And I thought, I don't really want to do that again. I mean, for the first 3 years, I was at sea off and on for about a year and a half. So I figured it was time to do something different. So, but I loved it, and I love serving veterans today.
Yeah, and you do great work for them. And so you decide to get out of the military, and then what comes next?
Well, what's interesting is, you would think with the military experience that I had as a controller, as a heavily involved in all that, that it would be really easy to find a job. But the problem was that I was really only qualified to do one thing, and nobody was hiring. So it was really tough to get back to work. But I finally did. I actually went to work for Michelin North America. Ended up being a regional off the road earth mover tire salesman. But so yeah, I mean, it took about 6-8 months to finally get back to work. And it was really humbling to walk through that time, because you don't make much when you're in the military, but you have benefits like housing. When we were in Puerto Rico, we lived on base housing, and
Okay.
so there's things that make up for it. But when you get out, you don't have any of that. You don't have any safety net. You don't make
Yep.
enough to save much. So you're kind of struggling, and it was tough. But I remember leaving the house one day saying, I'm not coming home until I get a job. And that day I got a job. So, um, you know, God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes we just have to kind of, go all in, so that, you know, know that that's what we have to do. But so I did that, and which, was great. Until, and I know know part of my story. And then, one day I'm getting ready to get up and get out on the road. I was on the road quite a bit. I had to
Sure.
travel to coal mines and rock quarries around around my territory. And I decided that I don't want to get up and leave so early. I normally leave the house. Was leaving the house around 4 to 4:30 in the morning, because I had a long
Okay.
way to go. And but that morning I had a headache. Decided to sleep in a little bit. Went into the office, and I get this phone call, and I don't recognize the number. And so I'm on the phone with someone else. So I come back to it, and I realize that it's from the scene of an accident, and because I hear the message, and they're telling me that your wife has been in a head-on collision, and life flight is on the way. And she had been on the way to take my daughter to the doctor to be seen, and she woke up with a cold or something. I don't remember what it was. And it was a 2-lane road, no shoulder, and the tires tipped off one side, so she corrected to come back on and overcorrected into oncoming traffic.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, so I get this call, And I'm on the phone, and my wife's grandmother is in the car. She'd come to live with us, so my wife's grandmother had, they were able to actually hand her the phone, and she kind of gave me a little bit of a brief what happened, and then the last thing I hear as I'm hanging up, because I'm headed to the hospital, is I hear this scream, and it's them taking my wife out of the car. That's the last thing I ever heard from her, was that. So I raced to the hospital, and uh, I beat life flight to the hospital.
Wow.
I don't know how fast I was driving, but fast enough, probably too fast. I get there, and I pull up to the emergency ambulance entrance, and I just don't know where to park, don't care. Throw my keys to the guy standing there and saying, "I'm going inside. If you need to move the car, move it." I didn't care.
Right.
I get there and nobody knows what's going on because life flight hasn't landed, so they haven't actually taken her in yet. Um, and then they come and get me and move me to a separate waiting room after after they get her. Um, anyway, it's really um, it's one of those surreal moments that's all kind of you know etched into your memories. I
Sure.
remember them sending a chaplain in to talk to me, and he didn't speak our language very well, so it was a tough thing. I know he was doing the best he could,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
wasn't very helpful in the moment. And they sent another guy in that he did speak the language, but he didn't know what to say either. Um, and because both my wife and little girl were life flighted, and finally there was this lady, and I still don't know her name to this date. Um, she didn't identify herself as a chaplain. She didn't identify herself at all that I'm aware of. But she immediately came in and said, "Have you called your family?" And I said, "No." You know. So she's taken my little phone and she's calling everybody, letting them know. And then she prayed with me, and she stayed with me. And the doctor comes in, and then the doctor and her nurse comes in and tells me that they've got my wife's heart restarted, and that while she'd been out, um, uh, without a heartbeat for almost 30 minutes, they thought because she was young that
Wow.
um, she would recover. And if somebody comes to get them, and this lady is still staying with me, um, and she's praying with me. She's just holding my hand during this time, and then about 30 minutes later, the doctor comes back in, and she comes over and sits next to me. The doctor does, and holds my hand, and starts to tell me that they did all they could. And um, it's yeah, it's one of those moments where you cry so hard
Yeah.
um, that you don't know if you're ever going to stop. Um, and yeah, it's one of those moments you just the entire world stops. My part of my family had arrived during that time while I was in that place, and they didn't know quite what to do. They didn't know what had happened yet, and I
Right.
certainly was in no position to try to explain it. But the lady that had come in there, that had helped me so much, had talked to them on the phone, she was literally talking with them and letting them know what was going on, and because I was out of it. Um, and finally, the doctor's nurse came in and drugged the doctor out because she wasn't leaving, and that was really special.
Yeah.
Uh, my little girl had had survived up to that point, and she was struggling, hanging on. And about 4 days later, she succumbed to her injuries in the hospital too. Actually, the same day that we buried her mom. And so about a week later, we had her funeral, and it was interesting. There was a guy there at the funeral that nobody knew, that was dressed. looked way out of place in a suit, and he had a pretty big limp. And several of the people there thought that it was probably the driver of the 18-wheeler who had
Oh,
come
okay.
to pay his respects. And he talked to no one. He cried the entire time, and he left quietly.
Oh
And
my goodness.
I never got a chance to say anything to him because I didn't even hear about this until several years later, actually.
Sure.
And you know, if by some chance he's listening,
Yeah.
God bless you, sir, because it wasn't his fault. He did everything he could to get out of the way. He drove into uh, the guardrail to get out of the way, and it just happened so quickly. He couldn't. It wasn't his fault.
Yeah. I'm sure something that he carries every day, but
I'm sure. I'm sure.
wow. I yeah, I didn't know, the full story, and that's just like you said, there are no words. It's chilling, it's tragic, it's horrifying, and I think what comes to my mind first is, where do you go from there? What do you do after that?
Well, you don't do the things that I did. Um, and I say that with all sincerity. It may sound a little funny at the moment, but it's not.
Mm.
I made almost every mistake you could make, except I didn't get into drugs, and I didn't successfully end my own life, even though I wanted to. Everybody tried to talk to me, but I
Sure.
wouldn't listen.
Right.
Everybody said you need to take your time, and I didn't. Um, in fact, I got involved in another relationship too quickly, and it ended badly. Um, and like I said, you couldn't talk to me, and and there were times when I just wanted to drive into oncoming traffic, and
Oh,
I'm glad
no.
I didn't. But my behavior and my choices um, were very bad. In fact, it got to the point to where I'd made some bad choices. I'd gotten involved in very what I would call risky behavior. It wasn't risky choices. It was more financially risky because I was involved in I'd gotten involved in anything that would make my adrenaline go, and
Mm.
it was normally around investing, and it was just you kind of get into it and you just forget about everything else, and made some really bad choices. And I got to the point where the government decided that they needed to manage my choices for me for a while. In other words, I went to prison, and I had done it.
Mm.
While what's interesting is you know you know people always ask me what did I do. Well, while I wasn't the bus that ran them over, I was certainly the person that pushed them out in front of it, because I led them to make decisions with me that they shouldn't have been making. Um,
Okay.
the numbers weren't what they should have been, and I could make it sound good, and just because it was just part of that risk of trauma induced behavior
Yep.
that you can't even see, you can't even imagine that you're there, and you look back on it, and I think, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
It's it was just beyond making sense, and so I paid a horrible price for that for that. Um, Lost everything. And I lost another relationship that I'd gotten involved in, and and she had every reason in the world to leave me, and I don't blame her a second for it. I was not the man that I was supposed to be, and but while I was there, um, while I was locked up, I got to the very bottom of it all, and I said, Lord, I don't know if I'm saved or not, but I know I need you now more than I need my next breath. Will you come into my life and save me and forgive me for all that I've done? And while my circumstances didn't change immediately, I began to change.
Yep.
And in that place, in that very dark place, I began to study. I began to read the Bible voraciously. I began to, I, I got where I could go back to college and take courses it was all correspondence. It was very difficult to do. But I'd gotten a bachelor's in biblical studies, a master's in divinity, and by the time I was done with my time, I actually finished up a doctorate in theology. I mean, I dedicated my life to getting that right.
Wow.
And and when I got out, I finished working on a psychology degree and a master's degree in counseling. And so, while something, while some very bad things happened, some of them tragic, some of them choice, uh, God used those very bad things and brought something very, what I believe to be very good from it. Because when I got out, I was immediately able to go work for a church, even though I was not making very much. That wasn't the point. I went to work for a church, and then that same church helped me plant a church. And then we started a veterans homeless shelter because during that time, as I transitioned out of prison, I was in a homeless shelter myself for 4 months.
Okay.
I had to because I didn't have any way to start over. I had nothing.
Right.
I mean, I started from zero, um, and I wasn't close to family. I mean, I wasn't geographically close to family, so I couldn't go there yet.
Yep.
So I had to start over there, and it was like a launching pad for me. And from there, like I said, all those things just seemed to just fall into place. It was part of God's plan, and started a church. Um, Met a beautiful woman who is now my wife. Her name is Karen, and I am truly blessed to have her. Um, so we started a homeless shelter, um, and in that process, the guy that helped me, that I actually met while I was in prison, I actually wrote his pardon application to the president that was signed. So we're pretty close.
Yeah, I bet.
Uh, um, so yeah, there's a story there we'll talk about another time, but in an upcoming session you'll actually get to meet him. But
Right.
he um, he actually brought equine assisted therapy to the shelter, and we saw the impact it was having over traditional counseling, because a lot of these guys had been through traditional counseling and they could tell you what you were going to ask before you were going to ask it, and
Mhm.
give you the answers that they thought you wanted.
Work the system.
And it would do absolutely no good. You were wasting your time, and you knew it, because as a counselor you're the easiest person in the world to lie to, because you're supposed to have unconditional positive regard for the people that you're working with. But then one day we brought this one guy to the horses, and he's the guy that you talk to, and he says, yeah, everything's great. And then you look at him in the eye and say, no, it's not. You failed the last 4 drug tests. You can't hold a job. This is your third or fourth shelter you've been in the last 2 years,
Mhm.
and you're about to be kicked out of this one. So we need to do something different. And within 30 minutes of being involved in equine therapy, he's knelt to the ground. He's crying, and he's telling his story, uh, from childhood abuse all the way up through, his drug abuse, getting, having all these challenges all throughout his life, and how he wants to do better, but he just can't figure out where to go and how to get started. And he said it's the first time he's ever been able to talk about it, because you know, and he doesn't understand. He says, and I can't believe I'm talking about it now. What is it about these horses that's cracked me open like a shell?
Yep.
And so I knew in that we needed to do more with this. And when you run one operation, it's hard to shift and expand that to other places. That shelter still does equine therapy, but now we have gone to, we've developed this Warrior Counseling Works that goes to other places.
Yep.
And now we serve hundreds of veterans a year. So that's kind of a segue into that.
So you, gosh, I just I want to start from way back. I want to get into Warrior Counseling Works. I have to tell you, as you're telling your story about spending time in prison and then coming out and sharing your testimony with the Lord. All I can think about is like the story of the prodigal son and
Hmm.
coming back and,
That's
into
me.
the fold. Yep. With open arms. And man, will he leave the 99 for the one. And I've been the one. I've been the one too that he's left the flock for to bring back in. And wow.
I just get chills with you saying that because that's the way that I've viewed it. Because when I came back and said I'll work at your church even if I have to clean the bathrooms.
Yeah.
And so yeah, absolutely,
And
absolutely.
what horrible, tragic, unspeakable things you've been through, and like you said, God has used it for good and to help so many more. And so you see the horses in action at this shelter, and you see this gentleman, on the ground, and he's even saying, which I think as horse owners we've probably all said something along the lines of like, what is it about these horses, like we just, that we can't get away from them, we love them so much, we want more no matter what they put us through, we love them. And you see this in action, and then is that where you start moving toward the mobile counseling in terms of the warrior counseling works?
Yeah, what we started doing is, having worked in a shelter, we understood how difficult it is to bring, um, to transport veterans from a shelter to a place because then you've got the staff members of the shelter, you've got all the appointments that they're dealing with, all these other things. So you've got time, money, and all this coordination. So it's very difficult to do. Especially when you think about going to a ranch, because now you're looking at traveling. If it's 30 minutes away, it's close.
Sure.
Most
Okay,
of the
that
time
makes sense.
most of the time it's like an hour away.
So you get 2 hours
And
of travel.
yeah, and then of course, depending upon the number of guys you've got one of their staff members for every five. So now you've got their staff involved in this and that. So Caesar and I were just talking. Said, well, why don't we go to them? Why don't we load up a round pen and take 2 to 4 horses, depending upon what kind of access we've got and what kind of size of a round pen we can set up, and we'll go from there. So we reached out, and nobody has ever told us no.
I
uh,
bet.
but, but we started with an organization called Camp Hope, which is
Okay.
located on the northwest side of Houston, and they've got facilities in 2 or 3 other states and warrior groups all over the country. In fact, we literally work with, because we're working with them there, we work with veterans from all over the country, and we're there. We're there every week, and we've been working with 20 veterans a week through them, and then we work with some others, some other places, but that's been our biggest focus. And they've just recently told us that. Hey, listen, we need to add some more people. So we're going to be working with 30 veterans a week starting this week.
Wow.
And last year, though, we got a real privilege. We One of the foundations we work with has a place in Jackson Hole,
Oh yeah. Pretty
and
country.
we were able to partner with Jackson Hole Therapeutic Riding, and we brought 18, 19 vets to there. We did a therapeutic riding retreat where we also got to do a trail ride through the Grand Teton National
Wow.
Park.
How cool.
Yeah, life changing,
Yeah.
absolutely life changing.
Oh my gosh, because you have nature, you have the horses, you have all these incredible things that are just naturally therapeutic.
Absolutely, absolutely all of it, and and it was a beautiful experience, absolutely beautiful, and it's just amazing the magic of it. I say magic; it's a God thing, but Uh, so yeah, we decided to go mobile, and it's made all the difference because it relieves the stress off the organization to not have to worry about that. And now what's really great is that you know when someone is homeless and they're going through counseling, they're dealing with. I mean, a lot of the guys we deal with. These are guys that have been shot at. These are guys that are dealing with you know. You know, um, prolonged exposure PTSD, where they've made 4 and 5 tours, and each time that they were in harm's way. One guy tells a story that every day his unit would pass through what's called the Khyber Pass, which is very, I mean, everybody's heard of it. And I can see you shaking your head, yes. But every day, as they were heading out, going through the Khyber Pass, they were being shot at the entire way. Whether it be regular arms fire or RPGs, they were taking rounds every day. And, it's like, how do you come back? I mean, how do you come back from that?
Yeah.
And everything's supposed to be normal. And we have another guy that was part of special forces units that the only backup they had was the fact that there would be a drone overhead following their action, because they had no relief in sight, and they would be going places that if it went badly, and sometimes it did, they didn't have anything but their own wits to escape, and they were dealing with a lot of times forces that were 2 and 3 times larger than their outfit, and it got really dicey, and they would lose men almost every time. And but what's interesting is all of them will tell you that they have lost more friends since they've been back than they did in combat. That's what keeps us there. That's what keeps us coming back to them. And so whenever they asked if we could add 10 more a week to what we're doing, we could have said no, but we weren't going to.
Yeah.
The work is too important, and it's life changing. I mean, there's studies out there that show that what we're doing is reducing the symptoms related to PTSD between 70 and 80%, and we see it in the guys we work with. I mean, they come in, and some of them will barely talk, and by the time we're done, they won't shut up.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. This last group we just finished with, one guy was he was exactly like that. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be a part of it. But by the time we were done, we bring them all to a ranch where we board in Brenham, Texas.
Okay.
Which is right between Austin and Houston, for those that don't know where Brenham is. And it's a beautiful place. We call it horse heaven because it's rolling hills. It's a beautiful facility.
I bet.
And, so you get to ride, because we do a combination of psychotherapy and therapeutic riding, and which I believe is a perfect combination. We can talk about that in a minute if you'd like. But, by the time we were done, he goes, "Man, I just don't want this to end. Can I do this again with you guys?" And we said, "Sure, absolutely. You can come anytime you want. You're welcome to be a part. And when you leave here, you've got our contact information. You can come out and ride."
Very cool.
And some do, yeah.
Like you said, life changing. This is not just life saving. Also, I mean, is the statistic 22 vets a day that we lose?
Take their own life.
Yep.
And we've met some of those guys who were unsuccessful in their attempts. Otherwise, they would have been added to that number. And yeah, it's real, because you don't know how to. I mean, what's normal anymore? I mean, your normal became, you're in a hypervigilant state all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and you never knew when that next mortar fire was going to land in your tent, or in your unit, or the next sniper round was going to catch you. I mean, you never knew. I mean, and you were there in a prolonged state. You were there for 3-6 months, and every day was, there was that very real risk.
Yeah.
And some of them were out there kicking indoors, and you never knew what was going to be on the other side of it.
Yep. Oh, just your nervous system fried. Just absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, and some of them would re-up for additional, for additional combat tours, because that's the only thing that they knew. And so that just continues to just dive them deeper. And the more they went back, the harder it is to pull them back to something that resembles normalcy.
Mm-hmm. And it's the healing power of horses is incredible. Like you said, it's a gift from God. It really is God given. And I feel like anybody that just has a horse, has been around them, takes a riding lesson, has a horse standing out back, makes a living from horses, has felt that. They've come to the barn or whatever in a bad mood, sad, melancholy, whatever it is. And if you just it's as simple as burying your face in your horse's mane and smelling that smell, I know they've done studies on this, like
Yeah,
literally reduces your blood pressure. It lowers your
it
cortisol
does.
levels. It actually does. There's so much science behind this, and you combine the horse and the science for your approach, right?
Right. Absolutely. You know, what's interesting is, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm kind of an education junkie.
Hmm.
And, we work with a little bit with uh, Columbia University, um,
Okay.
where we share, because they've done a study related to equine assisted therapy. And one of the things they found, in addition to the success rate, is it literally creates new neural pathways that help people become more successful in the
Wow.
path that they're headed. Literally, it's rewiring the brain, which I you know I
It's
don't have anything to
incredible.
say about that. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
that speaks for
what do you say
itself.
about that? Okay,
And that's, I mean, not the I mean, yeah, sources do matter for folks that are skeptics or whatever it might be. It's like these are reliable sources. And also just the anecdotal evidence. Honestly, a piece of paper, absolutely, that's incredible. But the people that come to you and say, this saved my life,
yeah,
that's the research right there, too, right?
it is, and we're blessed the fact that when we go back to places like Camp Hope, a lot of those guys are still there, and we get to see them on a regular basis, and they know the horses, so they come out, and hang out with the horses for a little bit, and just sometimes they'll just lay across them, and I just wanted to come and hang out with my buddy.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a unique opportunity, and we're blessed to be able to serve in this capacity. We really are. We really
Well,
are.
blessed, and you're a blessing to so many. And I personally, I'm sure there's other folks, this is just kind of fun. I would love to hear about the horses that you have, in your string, and where do you get them, and what kind of horses are you looking for when you add more to the herd, and you say you board, on this ranch, and just kind of, can you talk a little bit about the actual horse program and the critters in your barn?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the uh, we started with four. That's my partner in crime, Caesar. Had his four, and
Okay.
one of them actually unfortunately got colic during one of the hurricanes because it was on the coast, and the stress related. I mean, you know how that works. But so he has four or five. I don't know if he's added the fifth one. He has like five right now. Um, but I really want to talk about the ones that are up here with me, because that's the ones that I work with on a regular basis. I started with two, and of course now there's five.
Oh, they multiply.
They do, they do, and it's hard to I'm like you know you know you scroll through social media, and hey, I think that one would be good too. Anyway, but I started, and there are two paints, two gated paint horses. They're beautiful. Um, one is we call her Shima, which is
Okay.
Navajo for mother, and the other
Oh,
one, and her daughter is Shiloh, which is a Hebrew for peace. Um, we named Shiloh because, not because she's peaceful, but because we're trying to instill peace in her, because she's a 2-year-old, and there's not a lot peaceful about a 2-year-old.
terrible twos.
But we work. But I always tell Shima she's my favorite, and I think she knows it.
Oh.
And um,
She tells
but
everybody too.
oh yeah, she tells everybody. And but she's an 8-year-old, and she's I don't know. She's beautiful. She can be challenging, which is okay. You don't want them to just be some organizations want them to just be the 20-30-year-old horse that's just kind of, this is their last leg. But I like them to have the personality, and kind of push back a little bit, because that's real life, and that's what
Yeah.
she does. She will push back. She will test you. That's where the poem about the special horses. um, but what's really cool is I'll walk in a figure eight around some of the obstacles, and she'll follow me without a lead.
Oh, wow. That's cool. She
And
knows her job.
yeah, but then there's times when she's working with a veteran, and she didn't want to do anything. but it helps them learn to overcome an obstacle in life because
Yep.
you're going to have those times. So we call them in. Sometimes we're trying to walk over a blue tarp, and some horses there's no issue. Some horses, it's the worst thing ever. So there's Shima. She's beautiful. We have an off-the-track thoroughbred. He's the oldest one. He's a gelding, 21 years old. He doesn't act like he's 21 years old though. He acts.
Oh, I bet.
He's the fastest horse in the pasture. Because he's a thoroughbred.
That's right.
And flea bitten gray, beautiful. He's great. He doesn't always want to be caught, but when he sees that you're the one, that your intent, he'll eventually just say okay. But sometimes he's so good natured. Sometimes he'll get borrowed by the barn manager for riding lessons for young kids. He's that smooth. He's just he's a great horse. He's the alpha of the herd and keeps everybody in line. Looks out for everybody. But love him to death. Love him to death.
Yeah.
Do anything in the world for him. The next one is Beauty, which is a black quarter horse. And
Black Beauty.
And she has just such a gentle and super sweet spirit. Would do anything you asked. My wife is absolutely in love with her. When she'll come up to her and just they'll put their heads together. It's just beautiful, and she's just this super sweet horse. Strider, the off-track thoroughbred, and Beauty were part of. We used them in the Houston Veterans Day Parade. We rode in with the veterans from Camp Hope, and
that's so cool.
Man, just solid as a rock. Just there were all kinds of things going on around, and there were bands playing. There were motorcycle groups, firing off their bikes, and people were cheering, and nothing. Just solid as a rock. Although Strider did get, when the band kicked off the first time, he did get like, it's race time.
Where
he was a little excited, but then he chilled out after a little bit. But,
heard the trumpets.
Yeah. But then there's Star, which is the fourth main horse, and she was a gift from the farrier's brother, and again just a solid horse. She doesn't like to be caught. You're going to have to work for that one every time. but once you get her, she's going to do whatever you ask, and she's just one of those that you could ask her to back up a hill, and she'd probably do it.
That's
back
cool.
through the water, back up a hill, and she'd probably do it. And then there's Shiloh, the 2-year-old that we don't use with the rest of them yet because we're still working on her, and she's going to bite at you. She's going to, she's kicked me. She steps on me. She's done all that. And, but we still love her, and she's still beautiful. And hopefully within the next 6 to 8 months, she'll be at a place where she can be, be useful. But right now she's just, I enjoy working with her. We were out lunging today, and it was a little colder here today. In Texas, colder means it was 50 degrees. So
that's cold though. It's a different kind of cold.
Yeah, it's a different kind of cold. But we lunged until I got dizzy. So
mission accomplished for her.
Yeah, exactly. Then we went the other way, and I got dizzy again, and we were good.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Very cool. And it's cool to have all the different personalities, because I'm sure you get such a wide range of personalities in the people that you help, and the veterans and the at-risk youth, that you can almost match them up if you need to with who you think is going to be most effective. And sometimes some people, they like a little challenge.
Well, what's funny is, when we bring them out because we bring them out at the end, we bring them out to the, to the ranch there in Brenham. I bring the veterans out, and we let them pick their own horse.
Oh, okay.
And some of them they haven't met yet, and so they're going out and they're catching horses in the pasture with us.
Oh, cool.
Oh, it is. I love. We the first time we did it, we brought all the horses in. It was all nice, and all that. But no, let's create the challenge, and it's a 40-acre pastures, so they've got a lot of room to move around. And if they don't want to be caught, you know the drill.
Yep.
And but it's interesting how they match up, because they will find each other. The one that was the most challenging this last time, the two that were the most challenging, got with Shima, one of the more challenging horses.
Oh, that's perfect.
I mean, I could you couldn't have scripted it
Right.
any better. And the ones that were really needing that soft touch, because we pair them up, we they went with Beauty. The one that just it was just really, it was the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah, they're just drawn to him somehow. It just works out.
Yeah, and the horse was drawn to them. It worked. It worked.
That's
I
cool.
thought it was great. I thought it was great.
That's really cool. I love that. Oh man, you're doing such great work, and I know the program just continues to grow. And you have all these other things that you've done. The churches, the shelters, all those projects. What's next for Warrior Counseling Works? Do you guys have big goals in mind? Are you just going to kind of keep doing what you're doing because it's working?
Well, obviously we would love to be able to get our own place, because working with a ranch, even though the place where we are is great, it's a beautiful place to be. You always have limitations. So I mean, the big dream is to be able to get our own place. But as you know, property is expensive, and all those things take time. What we're really looking to do in the short term is to be able to add, like two more teams, so that we can serve more than we currently are,
Sure.
and be able to relieve the pressure off people. Because normally I'm out there doing doing the counseling work. I'm a licensed counselor, and it's a lot of work. But there's a demand to do far more than we're doing.
Yep.
And really and truly, there's a waiting list. And we tell them we don't know when we're gonna have the funding to be able to to add the next team, to be able to take care of your organization. And one of the things that breaks our heart is knowing that there's a bigger need than we can meet. Even within, even if you just scope lock us in this geographical spot, there's still more of a need than we can meet.
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to, add two more teams, which means two more trucks, two more trailers, maybe another 3 or 4 horses, and all the bills associated with that. The personnel attached to that, and all that is, I mean, it's expensive. And one of the things we just ran into, because we were working as a vendor that had a big government grant. We were working with a vendor, and we spent all the money that they allocated for us in the first 6 months of the grant. So basically, we're working without grant money for the rest of the year, unless we can build up other funding sources.
Okay.
So that's tough.
That's tough. Yeah.
It's tough. So I mean, I'm just being real. Real. And we're going to do all we can for as long as we can.
But these kind of organizations just need support, and that's I talked about this with somebody else on this podcast, and I talk about this all the time. We are meant to live in a village model, and our villages are spread out a lot further. Now we're not necessarily in the physical village, but we're meant to live in the village model, which means supporting each other, helping each other up, or helping each other, stepping up for each other. And I think to support organizations like yours is being part of that village. And so where can people go how can they support? How can they donate? Where can they find out more information about you guys so that they can get involved? Or if they're interested in getting on the wait list for treatment?
Yeah. If you're, to answer the first question, you can go to our website, which is warriorcounselingworks.org. And if you'd like to see about donating, just do a /mark and donate. And yeah, so we're looking for the individual donor. We're looking for the companies that we'd like to sponsor, because we'd love to tell the world that what they're helping. So you can go there. We're a 501c3. Of course. And if they needed any other information, we would gladly share it. You can go to social media, Facebook, TikTok. On TikTok, we're Warrior Equine.
Okay.
Uh, and it says underneath it, Warrior Counseling Works. But we share a lot of the things we're doing. A lot of our videos are on there. Between there and Facebook, we're Warrior Counseling Works on Facebook. But between Facebook and TikTok, we're putting it out there on a regular basis so that people can see what we're doing. We'll have a couple of interviews with veterans on there. You can go back and look at the pictures from our trip to Jackson Hole, and we're with the right funding, we're planning to go back this year.
Cool.
Which will be exciting. And so we're looking for support for these things. Horses are beautiful and magical, but they're also expensive.
Yep.
And but is there a price that we pay for our wellness? That's easy to say from someone who is asking, but from someone who has seen it firsthand work. We started with absolutely no support. We started out of Back Pocket National, so it's we've invested and we continue to invest ourselves and our own money into it, and we just need some support to be able to continue to be able to grow. Changing the world 4 hooves at a time is what we say, and it really does change their world, because you impact one person and it impacts their family, and that has a generational impact. One guy went back to Georgia after he'd been through all of it with us, and now he's working at 2 different. One's an animal rescue, horse rescue in Georgia, and another is a equine assisted therapy organization. And in his off time, when he's not working, that's what he's doing, and he's giving back.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I want to give back." So we helped him find places to connect where he was going back to. But we've served people from California to New York, and we're going to continue. Just the scale of it will depend on how much support we can muster.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, we all know as horse owners, horses are expensive, but they are worth it, and they're literally helping save lives here. And like you said, also, these folks are then pouring back into their communities, back into society, and passing it on. And so this is just such a beautiful cyclical process you've started. And I'm so grateful that you've come on here and shared your story. Thank you for being so open. And I know, like I said, it's going to resonate with people. Folks who are listening to this right now, I'm sure thinking the same thing I am. 2 words really come to mind after hearing your story from me, and that's resiliency and hope. And I feel like those are also applied to horses, just the animal
Yes,
themselves. I think they provide both of those things.
they do. They really do. And to give these veterans and the at-risk youth hope um, is priceless. I mean, it really is. I mean, there's no way you can attribute an actual dollar value to it. It really does change lives, makes generational changes beyond what we can fathom, and and it's, I look at it as an honor to be a part of it. I mean, involved at some level, that that God's allowed me the privilege of being able to step in the middle and do something, because it really does make a difference.
And you were definitely doing the Lord's work. Like, what you're doing sounds like it was put on your heart. This is part of your testimony, and God's hand is on it. And I'm very grateful on behalf of everybody for what you're doing. So thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. And this is not going to be the only interview where we're chatting with folks from Warrior Counseling Works. We're going to be talking with Caesar, right?
Right.
And also somebody that has benefited from this program, and I'm really, really excited for those conversations too.
Yeah, those are coming up. We'll get around to getting them scheduled over the next month. Yep. I'm looking forward to them as well. You'll like Caesar. He's good. You'll enjoy talking to him.
Oh, it's gonna be awesome. And yeah, just very, very grateful again. Thank you. I'm gonna put information in the show notes for folks listening right now. You can click through, check out the website, check out more information on Warrior Counseling Works, donate, support them, spread the word, the work that they're doing, and the mission that they're on to help people who, fought for this country, to help the youth that are at risk for all sorts of things that horses are helping with. Horses are saving, horses are healing, and we have to support this mission. So,
One thing about the kids, real quick, because we haven't talked about them much.
yeah, absolutely.
We have a couple of the first kids we worked with. Um, they, when they were done with their time in foster care, they decided that they wanted to go to Bible college.
Okay. Wow.
So, and one of them is on track to become a Navy chaplain.
How cool.
And I don't know where the other one is in the process, other than he's still learning. But it's really exciting to see the differences that it's made in their lives. It's because there's this what they call foster care to prison pipeline, and our goal is to break that pipeline up with the other work we're doing. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to throw that in. It's really really kind of cool to see them progress and see them change in this process too. It really is. I mean, the trauma part of the way that the horses help with trauma is just really amazing.
And do the kids react in similar ways that the veterans do in terms of the change is sometimes immediate, significant, very noticeable?
Yeah, they really do. It's really pretty amazing. You get a foster care kid that let's just take one of the guys that went to Bible college. We met him in jail. He was at the local county, and nobody would take him.
Hmm.
And unless if somebody took him, he was going to age out of the foster care system in jail.
Wow.
I mean, it was that bad. So we went to him, we talked to him, we brought him in, and within, our first counseling session with him, he's telling me the questions I'm going to ask, and to give me the answers. But then we walked out with a small group of them to the horses, and all of a sudden everybody's talking,
Yeah.
everybody's sharing what's going on. We're asking questions, and then we're done. We take about an hour and a half, and we're out there with them, and we're done. And I tell them we're done, and nobody wants to leave. And this is the first session.
Yep.
Nobody wants to leave. They've, you know, put a halter and a lead on the horse, and the horse is just standing there, and they're laying across them, and got the brushes out and brushing them, and they don't want to leave. Well, okay, now we have to. It's starting to get dark, so we have to now.
We
But I
gotta
mean,
go.
it was. I mean, just the very first time was transformational, and by the time those kids were done, they were riding in local parades. They were not as foster care kids, but as part of, just as part of a youth program,
Yep.
and and talk about building confidence, building, because some of these kids have been in the foster care system since they were 2 years old.
That's all they know.
It's all they know, and they've been bounced around from place to place to place, and now they're. I mean, it changes. It changes everything for them. It really does.
Man, this yeah, it just gets me thinking about how blessed I was. I've always known I was blessed to grow up with horses as a kid,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my own stories from childhood, but just to have the horses as the refuge, the shelter, to seek safety there and comfort, and then that these kids who would where else would they get this opportunity? That they're able to have with Warrior Counseling Works. They wouldn't they probably wouldn't. They probably wouldn't have the opportunity to be with the horses and get that healing therapy.
No, a lot of times they're in these houses with regular yards and 10 kids and no room to roam, no animals unless there's a stray that comes up.
Yeah.
And then they can't keep it. So that's one more thing they lose. And, they've lost so much.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's tough. And, but we're trying to make it a little better.
Oh, you're changing lives, saving lives. Absolutely. And for anybody listening, if you got a horse standing out back, just if you have 30 horses, one horse, whatever, Go hug your horse. Like just go bury your face in their mane and get some of that therapy for yourself because they truly are healers.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're feeling anxious. Um, go and hug your horse. It's
Yep.
interesting to share a quick story. One of our groups, there was a guy that came to us afterwards. And said, I was feeling really anxious when I got here today, and but I was thinking about the horses, and I didn't want the horse to feel that anxiety from me, so I just simply made the decision, I'm not going to be anxious today. And he discovered in himself that for him that anxiety was a choice. He
Wow.
could choose differently. And
Wow.
what was really cool is that's okay as long as that message that he's given himself is then reinforced,
Mm. Hmm.
because it won't last if it's not reinforced. But then when he got out there with the horse, and the horse was nice and calm and relaxed with him as well, because the horse could be a mirror to what's going on inside of us.
Yep.
Um, so when he got out there with the horse, and the horse was relaxed and all that, just I mean it, and he realized in that moment that it was absolutely a choice for him. And he said, I learned that I can take more control over my own mental health just by choosing better.
Wow. Life again, a life changing realization. What you can apply that to going forward is immeasurable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the horse is definitely a mirror. Definitely a mirror, and they will mirror things back to you that are hard to look at sometimes, but
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we could exchange some stories with that one too.
yes, absolutely. Oh gosh, thank you again. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for sharing your horses with the world and your education and your knowledge and just thank you. Yeah, I'm very very grateful.
Well, and thank you for doing what you do, because you get the word out too in a lot of different ways, and some of it's humorous, some of it's serious, but it's all good, and it all hits us right in the right spot. So you keep doing what you're doing too, Devin.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Well, folks, thanks for joining us again. Don't forget, you got to check your cinch. You got to check on your friends, especially after listening to this episode. God is good. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you for heading westward with us. And thank you again, Dr. Robertson.
It's an honor to be here.